A Game of Thrones Genesis on the PC, released by Cyanide Studios in 2011, is a real-time strategy game based on George R.R. Martin's fantasy novels. After having extensively played A Game of Thrones Genesis, it was evident that the developers, Cyanide Studios, have really tried to capture the deep political nature the books are famous for. However, this may have been too ambitious a goal. Real-time strategy games aren't usually heralded for their superb storytelling, and the story for A Game of Thrones Genesis is definitely no exception to the rule, which is a shame due to the rich source material the developers had to work with. The main campaign follows the Targaryens and their conquest of Westeros, and yes, we get to use Aegon the Conqueror and his dragon, Balerion the Black Dread. The concept was definitely solid. The story itself falls flat, and I lost interest in it fairly quickly. Granted, this is a real-time strategy, and the meat of the game, so to speak, is obviously the gameplay, so I can't really complain about it having a bad story. I just think it was such a waste of potential, as the books were magnificent, and there was tons and tons of content and backstory for Cyanide to work with. The gameplay for A Game of Thrones Genesis can be divided into two distinct styles. The first has you employ underhanded tactics to try and win allies by using spies for secret alliances and rogues to start riots in enemy towns. The second happens when war is declared. This can happen in many different ways, and the game undergoes a paradigm shift to a style more accustomed to generic RTS games, where the aim is to beat all opposing armies. The gameplay of Genesis tries really hard to try and capture the intricacy of the political skirmishes from the novels. However, this turns out to be too grand a goal to achieve. Genesis has pretty much everything you would expect from a Game of Thrones game, from assassins that utter "so sorry" to turncoats and even base-born bastards. However, due to the fact that the developers tried to include everything, you end up with an RTS game that has too much going on at once and requires the player to go through a very lengthy tutorial before being able to stand on their own 2 feet. Genesis also lacks many staples of popular RTS games, such as commands like attack move, meaning the player is required to pay extra attention to some of their units since they won't attack on their own and may just walk right into an enemy attack. What all of this consequently adds up to is a very, very steep learning curve and very frustrating gameplay.
I shall buy off this enemy unit.
Graphically, A Game of Thrones Genesis really isn't that spectacular. By all means, it is not the worst looking game out there, but it certainly could have been much, much better. Of course, I should mention you can't really zoom in to see for yourself, as scrolling merely changes the angle of the camera by about 45 degrees each time, which really doesn't help at all. While Genesis may be a letdown visually, I have to admit the voice acting was surprisingly good. The soundtrack was nothing special, which is a shame, but I did enjoy the voice acting in Genesis, as each character's voice felt genuine and did help me immerse myself, even if it was just a little. What broke it for me was that they reused the same actor for multiple characters, which really does ruin the experience. A Game of Thrones Genesis is not a perfect game. Riddled with many flaws, and with the standard of this game set fairly low, fans of RTS should give this game a miss. If you happen to be a massive fan of the series and really want to give this game a go, my advice to you is that it's not really worth full retail price, no matter how big a fan you may be.